there's no discharge in the war. 28 years later reunites filmmakers Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, who teamed up all the way back in 2002 to bring us 28 Days Later. They gained quite the cult following and was successful enough to warrant a sequel that came out 5 years later, 28 weeks later. That's not how a calendar works. 28 weeks is nowhere near 5 years, but I digress. And then, basically, this franchise, because I guess 2 movies qualifies as a franchise, went on ice. We didn't even get 28 months later before this. We got 28 months later, but just nobody involved in this particular production or in any of the previous productions was involved in 28 months later. It's on Amazon, and based on the cover art and based on the cast, I really think it's better that we just forget about that 28 months later. So, 28 years later, what is it about? Well, if you don't know what 28 years later is about, let me give you a brief rundown of 28 days and 28 weeks. Basically, there's a rage-infected virus that gets in your blood, and if it gets in you, then it's going to send you into an absolute murderous rage, and you're going to slaughter, you're going to claw, you're going to cut, you're going to bite, you're going to do everything. Ox, the natives are getting restless. Leave with your heat. Nobody that is not a long-term wrestling fan will understand what the fuck that reference is. But the whole point is, a rage-infected virus basically sweeps through the UK. You had Cillian Murphy, however the fuck you say it. And him, along with a couple others, they band together, they survive, and then we go to 28 weeks later. That has a quarantine zone somewhere in London where Jeremy Renner, Rose Byrne, you managed to make a movie with Rose Byrne, not that interesting. How fucking dare you, filmmakers? How dare you? That woman is gorgeous and gifted. Rose Byrne is nowhere near this, but more on the cast here in a little bit. But yeah, basically the rage-infected virus ends up making its way to that doorstep and then infects people, and basically things go absolutely tits up. And then the aforementioned 28 months later didn't happen, and now after numerous production delays, and numerous delays for a variety of whatever fucking reasons, right fees, who the fuck knows, we now get 28 years later, reuniting Danny Boyle and Alex Garland. Danny Boyle has done films like Trainspotting, as well as 127 Hours, and So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday. And Alex Garland, one of my favorite filmmakers, aside from Annihilation, I know it's called Annihilation, but work with me here. Ex Machina, Men Were Men in Tights, as well as Civil War, and then he teamed up to help bring Warfare to life. Warfare is fucking terrific. So that's basically your spoiler-free rundown and catch up on all that. So, what is 28 years later? What's the premise? Because it's been so goddamn long. Hasn't been 28 years, though. It's only been 18, so what's a decade? A miserable pile of days. In all seriousness, 28 years later basically shows what happens when humanity is trying to pick up the pieces. Pick up the pieces. We do get, if you saw the trailer, then you know what that opening line's from. It's from Rudyard Kipling's Boots, Move It Up and Down Again, 32 the Day Before, all that. It's an audio recording. And basically, there's an island that is home to some people. Obviously, it wouldn't be home to some penguins. As hilarious as it would be for penguins to be fighting the infected, we do not get that disappointed. But we get some people that are living a simple life, shall we say. They have enough supplies, they have animals, and even though supplies are low, they still have enough food. They have some good defenses, and also since they're on a little island, they have houses, and also the only way in or out is a little road that gets covered in high tide. So basically, if any infected were to try to come, probably wouldn't work all that well because they probably can't swim because they're not all that smart. Or are they? Has the virus evolved in 28 years? So we center around Jamie, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, who is talented, but I just can't unsee and unknow how he ended up with his current wife. Preying upon people doesn't just, is not exclusive to one gender. I digress. He was also recently in Kraven the Hunter. I believe he was also in, he's been in a lot of stuff. Let's just say that. Go to IMDb. He has his wife, Isla or Isla. I'm just going to call her Isla because it's funnier. Actually, I think her name is Isla. I forgot a few pronunciations here because the accents are really fucking thick because it's in the UK. Played by the incredibly gifted Jodie Comer. And she has she's had head pain. She can't take anymore. She's just not doing all that well. She's having problems remembering things. Things are going a little bit awry and everything, but she still loves her son. Spike, played by Alfie Williams. And basically, anytime any troubled Utes are brought up to a certain age, they go onto the mainland to learn how to hunt, because you got to carry on the tradition of hunting the remaining infected and hopefully taking them out. It turns out that the infected have evolved and devolved in some cases. Some are slower, some are faster. Some, some are good with condiments. Hot dogs, armor, hot dogs. So they end up running afoul of some infected, shall we say, and from there we have a 28 insert whatever later movie. One that has received a lot of attention, has received a lot of buzz. I remember seeing the trailer for this and thinking, okay, that looks all right. I will tell you, as somebody that did not necessarily care even upon a rewatch, how I felt. I didn't really like 28 Days. I didn't like the shaky cam stuff and everything. But it was made around for $8 million and was pretty goddamn successful. And then you got 28 weeks later, it was made for around $15 million. This was made for $75 fucking million. I know there's inflation, but Jesus goddamn tap dancing motherfucking Christ. They made a lot of goddamn, big calls with this goddamn thing. Sony's like, we can put more money into this. The anticipation is there. Do not get me wrong. People have been waiting, clamoring, frothing at the goddamn mouth like they're infected with the goddamn virus themselves to make this movie happen. To see this movie happen. To see it come to the big goddamn screen. I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit, and I'm going to explain why. Because, yeah, the aforementioned feelings I had towards 28 Days, 28 weeks later, I didn't have high hopes for this. But I saw the ratings. I saw critics' early audience reactions. There were some people that were like fucking crying over this. That were losing. I'm like, okay, I didn't have high expectations, but all right, these are people I trust. And everybody has different opinions. But then I'm watching and I'm waiting. And I'm waiting. The opening, I will say, actually was pretty well done. And does tie into something a little bit later on. Without getting into spoilers. Even though I wondered why the fuck they opened it the way they did, then I found out why. And there is a family dynamic, and there is the fact of like, okay, could the real monsters actually be humanity itself, the remaining humans, and maybe the infected just can't, the infected are monsters, no doubt, but just all this crazy shit's going on, but maybe, are we the bad guys? So, yeah, we get the father-son dynamic. We do get a community that honestly is ready to come apart at the seams. You also don't really get a sense that this is necessarily a place full of real people. They kind of just feel like cardboard cutouts. And this movie is just under 2 hours, which I think makes it just about the longest. I think it's like just on par with 28 weeks later. And again, there were parts to this that I didn't mind. Like the gore effects were fairly well done, which they need to be for a goddamn $75 million budgeted movie. And yeah, you were able to stretch things out and go more for broke and everything. But I feel that they did the stuff with the infected better in the first and even the second one. Even though they were throwing the camera around a whole goddamn much, especially in the first one. Jesus fucking Christ, I got nauseous. But, just, like, the dialogue doesn't hit. And Alex Garland is a terrific fucking writer. He really is. And Danny Boyle has proven to be a really good writer, but I don't know if it was just the performances. I don't know if it was just the fact that this movie didn't know what it wanted to be, couldn't figure out if it was going to be about, the infected, or it was going to be about family, or it was going to be about drama, or it was going to be about going to the ends of the earth for the people you love. Which, there's nothing wrong with cobbling those things together, but I just don't feel this movie balanced that well. And when the eventual reveal happened, I'm like, that's the big reveal? I assumed that much from what you fucking were, indicating earlier. And there's no sense of danger. Like, I'm sorry, there's just no sense that any of these characters are in danger. Even with some of the infected, there are a lot faster. And there are some sweeping shots. There are some points where you see other people getting eaten and bitten and stuff like that. But I do have to say that I did like the use of arrows. That was something that was implied a little bit earlier on, I believe in 28 Days Later, if I recall correctly. Using weapons where it doesn't make as much of a noise. In this, it makes more sense to have that, because now people have learned if you make too much noise, if you have bullets, if you have that kind of stuff, even if you can manufacture them, make a lot of noise, they're going to come for you. So that part was fine. I just don't feel that this movie had enough to sink its teeth into, ironically, for a film like this. It is in theaters. If you want to check it out, I am going to get into spoilers, but those are my feelings. I didn't really like this at all. 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So, basically, in the beginning, there was rap, as our Lord and Savior Dr. Dre once said. There are Teletubbies playing. Instantly, I'm like, those are more horrifying than the infected. There are a bunch of kids that are watching, kind of laughing, but also you can see a few that have tears. Why do they have tears? Well, it turns out that actually the infected are arriving. So pretty much this is like ground fucking zero. It's in the Scottish Highlands. There is a boy named Jimmy who ends up essentially having to run away from the infected. And mother, I don't know, gets fucking eaten. There's this one that gets bashed through the goddamn window, tells him to run. We get the shaky cam stuff, which, I'm sorry, it's not artistic. That's stupid. It's just lazy. But he ends up running to this church that apparently is right near their house. And his dad is there. His dad is like, don't worry, it's not all that bad. It's salvation. We're going to be fine. And then he hands him a cross and says, you go hide here. And then he gets bitten and turned into the infected. And does his thing. Well, Jimmy's hiding there. And then we cut to Jamie and Spike. Spike loves his mother. Knows his father is trying to do good. They're going to go out to the mainland so Spike can learn how to hunt. And he can have his first kill, do all that stuff and everything. And we set up a little bit of world development. And even his grandfather is there, who is, of course, concerned about his daughter. I would be concerned also if Jodie Comer was not doing all that well, because that is a beauty that you take care of. It's also a very terrific actress. I was a little bit disappointed with what they had her doing in this, even though I sort of understood it. And they basically they get these supplies, and they're going to, go out. They got all these arrows, all this stuff. And the idea is, the more you kill, the easier it gets. You got to aim for the head. You got to aim for the heart, or in the case of the sloths, which are these crawly, creepy, slimy creatures that are very, very dirty. Also, you have to get them in the neck. Also, there's a family of them in the forest. One that nearly sneaks up on Aaron Taylor Johnson's Jamie, and had Jamie actually not had the ability to just take a couple steps back, then he might have gotten eaten. So, boom. There you go. One gets killed. Spike does a good job. Jimmy kills another, and then there's this kid, and he lets the kid go, knowing full well that kid will probably warn everybody else. But don't worry, it's fine. They go through these houses. They have to go further into the mainland to get more of these supplies, because the UK is a quarantine zone. They're going here, they get to this house, and then they're going to go back, and then they see these infected right by this tree. And then they end up basically getting chased back into this house. And there's this one called the Alpha. Not Konosuke Takeshita, mourn the pity, as hilarious as it would be for him to be there. Again, wrestling fans, dying laughing in the comments, everybody else confused. They end up in the attic, and then they're staring through this hole in the roof and stuff like that. This house is pretty dilapidated, but to provide shelter, they notice that, oh shit, the Alpha's just waiting there. And the Alpha's really fast and really strong and really bound and determined. You can outrun them in the sense if you have a major head start, but they're going to catch up with you eventually. So Spike has a big, crazy dream. Red, all in red. Rocks are falling. Deer are coming along. There was this stampede of deer earlier. That was like something that was a tie back to the other movies. At least the first one. And then he ends up and basically he ends up having this nightmare of his mother drowning, so he's getting I'm sick, all this kind of stuff, so he has to get back to her. Eventually, the house does end up collapsing, sort of. They get out and they just decide to make a run for it. And it isn't going all that well, because the big thing about the road that goes in and out of the mainland, or from the mainland to the island, is it gets covered at high tide. They managed to just start running at a dead fucking run. But that Alpha's coming up on him. The scene sounds a lot more interesting the way I'm saying it than the way it played out. And the defenses of these arrows, by the way, there's these shots of these various military films or, Renaissance festivals. Huzzah! Where they're showing all this, these movie clips and stuff like that of arrows being fired at other armies and all that. I felt that was lazy. I don't really think we needed to do that. And then they end up taking down the Alpha. And they are shown, we're not infected, let us in. Everybody's partying. And then Spike realizes that his dad is not taking care of his mother, or, taking care of the mother as well. And ends up sleeping around with a girl named, I think, Rosie. I gotta say, the actress playing Rosie, pretty fucking gorgeous. I don't blame him. But, given what we find out about the wife a little bit later, maybe we shouldn't do that. It's kind of like a Dr. Seuss situation. I'm in the spoiler section, so it's okay. But Spike basically starts getting really upset because he finds out more about stuff from his grandfather. Because while they were in this house, just before the house collapsed, he saw this, pillar of smoke, like this plume of smoke coming up. Oh, that's Dr. Kelson, by the way, played by Rafe or Ralph Fiennes, however you want to say it. And he ends up basically, essentially, finding out that he was a doctor, and he finds, he knows his mother's sick, so he's like, okay, I care about my mother way more than I care about my father, because I saw him just banging some broad there in an alleyway, by the way, that almost looked like it was taking place in a major city. So I don't know where that was, but whatever, it's fine. He goes and takes his mother to go find the doctor. And that's the second half of the goddamn movie. Now, we find out, like, they end up going to sleep at one point, and the sloths like to eat worms. Well, he starts trying to eat the shoelace of Spike, but then Isla wakes up, and we see her, like, cover and bang the goddamn, sloth's head and break it and destroy it and everything. As long as you don't get the blood on you, or, you can get the blood on you like this, but you better wipe it off, and you better not let one drop get in your goddamn eye. They basically, we see that in a little bit of a flashback and everything. And then they're going along, trying to find this plume of smoke for this doctor. Spike's an idiot, by the way, because what supplies does he think he has? Or does he think he has? Like, I know he's probably only like about 12 or whatever, but still, it's pretty fucking stupid. Now, nevertheless, we have Spike, along with his mother. They're going along. She's having major memory issues. She's talking about her father, all this stuff. And then we suddenly see some soldiers that dive into this goddamn, like, formerly flooded tunnel. This, like, whatever, this ditch, this giant ditch. It's like to a sewer. And they basically end up, getting in a firefight with these infected, where they basically end up getting killed. And none of these characters really matter. We do see one named Eric, who's played by a guy that certainly tries. He ends up saving them when they get to this gas station. All these fumes are around and they're choking them out. And they have Shell gas stations in the UK. I didn't know that. Who's in the UK that can tell me, do they have Shell gas stations? Because that's what that fucking logo was, and we have them here. There's one literally 5.5 miles from my house. But I digress. This guy, Eric, ends up saving them. He's talking about his cell phone that has like 1% of, battery left. And shares a little funny moment with Spike about his girlfriend that has like the duck-billed platypus lips and that kind of stuff. And I'm not knocking the girl. I'm just saying that it leads to a joke. Why does her face look like that? Oh, there's this girl I know, this a shellfish. And oh boy, that's just crazy. And he gets upset and then throws the phone away because the battery runs out. You can probably find a charge cord somewhere, even in this freaking world, but nevertheless. So, at one point, this thing forgets it's a fucking zombie movie. Actually, at a few points. They end up going on this bus. Well, the mother does. And the mother sees a woman freaking out. An infected freaking out. Because an infected is pregnant. Yes, they can get pregnant. Oh, boy! Wonder what's going to happen there. Is it going to be like the goddamn Dawn of the Dead remake? That bullshit? Remember that? Not fucking anybody in that group allow that. Nevertheless, she ends up deciding to help give birth. Help the infected give birth. And then Eric, justifiably so, shoots the goddamn mother when the mother starts freaking out. Oh, by the way, the mother, the mother infected was actually the wife, or the snoo of Samson. Where we get Zombie Dick, and he's just running. He rips up Eric's head, and by the way, that's another thing. They rips the head off with the spinal column there, and it's not very interesting, but whatever. They think it's interesting. It allows for better gore effects, I guess. And then they end up running away, and they think they're done for. Samson then runs into Dr. Kelson, who hits him with a narcon that knocks him out, basically. Takes the head, and he says, oh, this is Samson. That's what he calls him, by the way. And then basically we get the rest of the movie where, well, he doesn't have any machines to diagnose or biopsy or anything, but basically it comes down to the fact that Jodie Comer's character has cancer. It's spread from her brain to her body. That kind of stuff is terrible. And look, it's terrible. Fuck cancer. Goddamn terrible. It just doesn't register really all that well, and Spike doesn't understand why in the world they're doing this. Why in the world this is happening. Why the doctor can't fix. I mean, he's a little kid, but still. I do have to point out, by the way, the major stupid thing about this, they take the baby that may or may not be infected, apparently isn't. I guess 2 infecteds can give birth to a non-infected, whatever. They take the fucking baby with them. Just leave it. I'm sorry. Just fucking leave it. You're causing problems. And then, basically, we find out that the doctor, talks about something that's like a bit of Latin, memento mori, where he basically says, remember we die, and then there's another remember we love. I think it's memento amoris, or aramis, something like that. And his hideaway, basically, is a bunch of trees of bones and some columns of skulls. Which, basically he took, Eric's head from Samson. He's going to clean it off and put the skull there because he's basically gone fucking mad. He's about the most civilized madman you're going to fucking get at this point. He's also covered in iodine and whatever to prevent, I guess, the infected from attacking him. But, Spike has a heart-to-heart with his mother, and his mother basically decides, I want a quick death. Now, it could be that she had major cancer. It could also be that the rage-infected virus is causing this. And maybe it's mutating in her. I don't know. I mean, I'm going with the cancer, and she just wanted a quick death because she didn't want to suffer. And he burns her, basically, and then cleans off her skull, and he goes to the highest point. Spike does and puts it on there. Well, now he takes the baby all the way back to the goddamn island gates, leaves it there in the basket, and then decides, I guess he leaves a note that he somehow managed to write with whatever, and says, hey, Dad, don't come looking for me. I'm doing what I want to do. And his dad's trying to run out and get him, despite the fact that the kid's clearly back on the mainland. He's not going to hear you. And that's it. That's it right there. Oh, wait, no. We have Spike doing some hunting. And he's getting overwhelmed on these streets. And oh my God, he's fucked. He's got these arrows. He's fucked. And then suddenly, there are people in jumpsuits, straight up train spotting style, that are up there and said, you look like you have some trouble. You mind if we join in? Wait, let's join in. And then we get a little brief amount of silliness where we go back to like the 2002 one. And they're killing, cutting, and everything. Not getting any blood on them, and they're fine, I guess. They're just having a great old time. And the main guy has a cross that's hanging there, and he says, I'm Jimmy, let's be pals. There's Jimmy. They're doing 2 more of these fucking things. One's the Bone Temple that's coming out next year, I guess. And then 28 years later, part 3. Why? Why are we doing... Why? Just... Ugh. Whatever. You know what? I'm sorry. I don't care. I don't care if I get hate for this. F. It's not good. I gave it like 2 stars on Letterboxd. I've seen way worse than this, but for all the hype, this was so disappointing. And for somebody that didn't even necessarily care for the other ones. This is disappointing. I'm like, that's it? That's what you guys are losing shit over? Yeah, F. Agree, disagree what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritland. Until we meet again, happy trails to you.